Hey, it's Shabes, and welcome to the first audio-only edition of Anitube Digest, where we go over the best and not-so-best anime YouTube videos that came out this week, from the 1st of January to the 1st to the... No. From the 8th of January to the 14th of January this week. Yeah, my camera broke, I guess. It's just not working, and it's happened before on this phone, and I can't remember the length of time it took to remedy itself, but it did somehow fix itself without me doing anything eventually, but I'm pretty sure that took a couple months, so I don't know when that's going to be fixed. I don't know how to... Maybe I'll go to Verizon or something, maybe, if I care that much. But this one's audio only because I don't want to miss a deadline. And first, for the videos that I thought were not good. And the first one, it's fucking shit. You watch Nekopara by Emanito. How dare you? How dare you make something so innocuous of this terrible show? Nekopara is horrible. How dare Emanito like this show? I'm angry. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist buying into the meme of Evan being canceled over this video of him being in the minority of enjoying Nekopara, which watching this show, it seems, I haven't seen the episode, but like watching the video of him showing the clips and stuff, it seems pretty innocuous, guys. Like this was what everyone's so fussed over, like, oh, that was garbage, awful. Like, did Evan just not show the bad parts? I feel like he wouldn't have. I feel like he, I don't know. But this isn't actually a not good video, Evan, don't worry. I just wanted to buy into the meme. But, yeah, I don't really have any not good videos this week. Just couldn't find any. And it happens sometimes, and I want to take that L sometimes of, not trying to... I don't want to overexert myself of, like, trying to hate something if I happen to watch something that I think might be bad, but, like, I don't want to subject myself, if you know what I mean. But yeah, the videos I thought were decent. This Evanito video I thought was okay. But I wanted to mention it because I was happy that he's able to really stick to his guns so far as to like make a video over it. I could tell he's mostly joking and like kind of he's not really describing the show itself. Just kind of the idea this show has cat girls in it, I guess. So he's just kind of joke about it, and not ridiculing the show in that way though, because like I feel like a lot of people who did genuinely disdain this show, like pointing this stuff out, but Evan takes a lot more of a playful attitude towards it, and I do appreciate that and wanted to shout it out for that reason. The idea of him getting canceled over is really funny, so yeah, good video. I enjoyed it. Although here's a video that I'm not sure. I don't want to put it in not good because I didn't hate it. I really, or like, overall had more problems than good with it. Because like, I don't know, there's just things that are interesting to talk about. I'm kind of pointing out, just kind of have questions about. This is by a Sleepy Insomniac, talking about anime girls and their destruction of humanity. Generally talking about how anime girls have de-anthropomorphized or like kind of degraded over time, where they're no longer based on actual human beings, but they're based on the idea of an anime girl and kind of the almost brain dead zombie like fictional abstraction of a cute girl. Kind of like what Dogokobo, he's citing what Dogokobo does, those virtual reality girls, like that logical extension. And I definitely see where they're coming from with this. And they make I think the best comparison they make is this Tom and Jerry comparison, where with cartoons, Tom and Jerry aren't necessarily a cat and a mouse. Like, they are in shapes, but not in functionality or, objectively speaking, because both of them can squash and stretch into whatever they want. They don't need to act. Neither of them are very barred to the constraints of being a mouse or being a cat, besides the whole like one being small and one being big, I guess, and one's like destined to chase the other, but even that one is kind of like tossed about as whatever. And I like that comparison a lot, and I do see what they're coming from here. So I enjoyed the video for that aspect, but there's certain ways they went about it that were questionable, or I just kind of generally was confused by. They have this whole section that it's like a history of anime. Like they take sort of a very obvious detour, talking about Daikon 4 and how that pretty much sparked the idea of anime girls being abstractions. Like that was the first major instance. And I'm not too sure. I'm sure that's an example, but I kind of questioned exactly the cultural legacy and impact that animation actually had, considering it was never legally distributed. It didn't have as much of a reach. It has certainly a cult status, and it's referenced in Fooly Cooly and Otaku no Video, which themselves are Gainax properties. Like, so Gainax is the only studio I know of that is really copying this. It's not like a long-standing genre-spanning influence, medium-spanning influence like Ashita no Joe or something. So I don't know in terms of its exact cultural impact as it being the real single catalyst. But also, there's a lot of examples around that time, like in the early 80s, that helped contribute to this idea. It wasn't one character. It would have to have been multiple ones kind of happening at once, and then those setting the trend and pushing that forward. But even then, like what we have now with the cute girls doing cute things with Dokukobo, which I think is your primary example of where we are. How did we get to this point? I don't think Daikon or any of these other 80s properties necessarily contributed to that specific with Dokukobo doing that. Like, because that boom has only happened in the late 2000s, and I think people would mostly credit K-On! For starting that, or Lucky Star before it, which you do push for significantly as one of your examples. But you never really say that Lucky Star was kind of the catalyst or the main driver of that. You just kind of say it's one of the reasons we're here now. So I guess you were trying to figure out where it came from Lucky Star, but like I don't know, it kind of leaped over a lot of other history, and I think I get it was like brief, and you only spent like 15 minutes I think to your admission. But I don't know, as someone who's trying to be versed in this stuff and think about this stuff on a deeper level and really want to listen to what you're saying, but being versed in this stuff, I don't know if it was fully realized or supported in the way that I think it could have been. He makes one statement towards the end. I'm paraphrasing, I think, but like he was saying, it's like, oh yeah, Asuka's a really great character. Not Yui. I forgot her name. Oops. Kumiko? Yeah. From Hibike no Euphonium is a good character. Like he's listing all these like cute girl like kind of examples that are like, yeah, they're good characters, but he says that we like these characters like Sakura as a well-written character and Asuka and Kumiko, but we're hated for liking them on the internet. People don't like us because we like these characters, something like that. And I'm like, where do you get that? where does this notion come from? I don't understand. I'm just kind of speechless, actually. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know anyone that ridicules people for liking Cardcaptor Sakura, for like liking the character Sakura, not on like on a deep like, affectionate level or anything, but like liking the character. I don't know anyone who I don't know who fits this description really. And the ones who do, how much do they really matter to the discourse? Do we really need to be pleasing these people? Who cares? I don't know. It was a weird statement to make, in my opinion. But I do kind of like where he's coming from, where he's talking a lot about New Game too, where it's like, are we really watching this show for the development of this video game and like a well-written narrative, whatever. It's like, no, we're watching it because the girls are wrapping themselves in a teddy bear sleeping bag and acting cute and everything and having these hilarious situations. And he's right. But I don't necessarily see that as like their destruction of humanity, I suppose. I think there's something to be said about, like, I don't know. It's just strange. I don't have any animosity towards the video, so I don't really put it as a not good, but it is one of those videos that were kind of interesting to discuss and think about. Unfortunately, I don't have too much else to say, but certainly an interesting, different kind of perspective. Some people in the comments, at least, you can tell it was fairly divisive because, I mean, the like-dislike ratio is fine, but in the comments, there's a lot of kind of like discussion to it, so it's something to think about. So I would recommend it for that, for sure. Okay, so I've been subscribed to this guy called Dr. Mike for a while, just because, yeah, you know, I stumbled on one of his reaction videos, and he does a lot more than reaction videos. He does like Q&A and various topic videos and stuff like that. But I really subscribe to him and like watching his videos for his personality. He's very cheerful and friendly, while being very knowledgeable and open to things, I guess. It's like this Cells at Work video. He watched the first episode of Cells at Work, and having seen his other reactionary videos, it was interesting. He didn't have as much to say in terms of like giving outsider information or further depth information that, like, I think his other reaction videos are. So in my opinion, I think his other reaction videos to other dramas like Grey's Anatomy or something like that have been a little more informational, in my opinion. Maybe because those particular shows have a lot more to them. But he really gives a lot of credit and respect to Cells at Work. You know, and he definitely seems to be enjoying it, not ridiculing it. So feeding into it of like, yeah, this is right for this reason, and kind of giving that standard reactionary video. There's a lot more footage of the show and him kind of giggling at it and reacting to it than usually is in these reaction videos of his. He usually pauses very often, and most of the video is him talking about the very small sentence this person just said and like extrapolating a lot of detail from it. That didn't happen as much in this video, which was a little disappointing, but maybe it's because it's such a far out concept that he didn't have as much to say, or maybe it's just too basic. I don't know. But he did take it with respect, and it was enjoyable. And I do like him as a content creator, so I would suggest checking him out, especially maybe if you like Cells at Work and seeing someone's reaction to it. I know another guy did it a while ago. I never watched his video because it seemed a little more opportunistic. Dr. Mike says the only reason he started this one is because it actually dropped on Netflix. I didn't know that Netflix suddenly got this show, which is interesting. But he had thought about it and just forgot about it. And so he's reacting to it like way after the series came out, like way after, where it's not necessarily opportunistic or popular necessarily to talk about, but it's certainly something he wanted to do, and it was just happened to be on Netflix. So he's like, oh, let's do it. So I did appreciate that a lot. He's not necessarily clicking for views or anything, like, netting for views or anything like that. Or at least it didn't feel like that to me. So I enjoyed this. Not as much as his other reactions, but it was enjoyable. So I suggest you check it out. It was pretty cool. Speaking of another thing I think you guys should check out, this is the first episode of Fan vs. Pro, which is a new channel hosted by Flip Otaku, I believe is his username. He has his own channel. He mostly does manga stuff, and it's kind of whatever. And the pro being Justin Savakis, who I do work for. So, disclaimer there. I have a fair connection with him, him giving me work. That's a whole thing. Justin has been in the industry for a long, long time, and, was a former fan subber back in those VHS days, and he's a wealth of information and not all that judgmental, I don't think. He has his opinions, but I think being in the industry so long, he's gotten to that point where he's it's past the fandom days, and it's like he's withholding. He's holding back his power level, I think, which is which I enjoy a fair deal. So this was really enjoyable. It was a live stream, so I was actually able to ask a question or two, and react to stuff, and it was cool for that for that. So I suggest subscribing to it and learning about the. I don't know what the schedule release is necessarily, but I really enjoyed it, and the people in it too are people that really do care about like the industry in terms of like supporting it in a legal sense and not having too much of a tolerance for piracy. Although I will say, they did have a very fair, balanced case about piracy, where it was like their only concern is people profiting off of off of property that they don't own, that they don't have any right to distribute. So I mean, by all means, fan subbers are what they're doing is not legal. There's no gray area about it, but it is doing a service, and that's neither here nor there. And then he also, this is mostly like Justin talking. I think pretty much all of the value comes from Justin talking, which is value in and of itself, in my opinion. And it's great that Flip Otaku is the fan kind of being the vehicle for which to have Justin's thoughts out there, because Justin is just too busy with the actual industry and doing stuff to have his own channel or to to do this sort of legwork, because it is a fair deal of legwork to make content and stuff, as some of you would probably know. So it totally makes sense. And so I'm very happy that Flip is the one giving him the microphone basically, and kind of giving him the platform. And Flip is coming from a place of a fan who is mostly kind of a little bit of a shill, very proselytizing and buying all of the discotheque releases, and very strong advocate of the industry and stuff. But he is pretty transparently a fan of tokusatsu, of Ultraman and all that, and how like Kamen Rider in particular like just doesn't have any releases in the United States, so they all have to watch it illegally. And that's just kind of an unfortunate reality. So I think a lot of them realize that it is an unfortunate reality. I will say, Justin had a really interesting point that I didn't know about when it came to the 2010s, kind of during the anime crash. For those of you who weren't around, like before Crunchyroll and stuff, like, I mean, I wasn't around either, but one of the reasons that it was tanking at the time was because of accessibility. Fan subs were just faster, and they were able to get the episodes out, and it was digging into their business, because the business at the time could only process these shows 8 or 9 months after it was released in Japan. So fan subs were actually a real significant threat to the anime industry, and was tanking it for a while. And they had like a couple years of no new dubs, and it was a severe problem. I think it's a matter of Crunchyroll pulling that out and making it more accessible. And it's almost always an accessibility issue when it comes to pirating. A lot of people, they don't care about. Some people just don't care, and they'll do it for free, and they'll have any moral objection to it. But I think Justin makes a very strong case either way. And he has a lot of ground, coming from someone who has been in the industry for, I think, 2 decades, which is a lot. And it makes sense, hearing from his perspective. And I think a lot of people who are making the argument for the other side, they're not necessarily in the industry themselves, and they're not contributing in that way. They're just kind of advocating piracy, and just they're not getting this stuff more accessible to more people. I don't think. That's me neither here nor there, I guess. But I really enjoyed this. There was some technical issues towards the beginning, which they said they'll polish, and that's fine. It makes sense. It was also a live show, which is pretty ballsy. This could have been just pre-recorded and have like a set of questions and stuff. But Flip really put a lot of effort into getting questions siphoned from Facebook, from other places, from the YouTube chat, and it was really interactive in that way, and I really enjoyed it for that. So I wouldn't take that away, despite the technical problems that it incurred. And yeah, I would say that Flip, for the most part, kind of seems, I don't know if he is necessarily asking the toughest questions, or taking as strong of a stance in advocacy of piracy, I suppose. Like, this was about bootlegs, but it also kind of deviated a little bit more. It was just general piracy, but it seems fairly vague. But I'm sure this is just the first episode. But for a first episode, I really, really enjoyed it. Maybe just for someone who is really fascinated about the anime industry itself and finding ways to get this to more people, to make it bigger, and hearing the truths and the realities and the problems they have on the ground, and the people who are in the front lines, making it sound like a battle, but like, I mean, I kind of consider it as such. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Decent job, decent. Let's talk about a JaxBlade video. I saw that he talked about Black Clover's asked his training work in real life. I saw those Black Clover videos. I was like, oh, click. But also, like, I've seen Jax's Blades videos before, and so I was like, oh, I want to be able to talk about it on Digest. So clearly JaxBlade has a really great background, and this is a great niche that he's found for himself, especially because he's able to mostly talk about shonen anime, which gets him a fair deal of traffic. And he does clearly have a passion for it. He's not simply trying to take the allure of it and then kind of twist it on his own or whatever, or bank on it necessarily. He really does come from a fan's perspective, and he even voices his opinions about the series itself with, like, you know, and he give us Black Clover some credit, and and talking about maybe his criticisms in contrast with My Hero Academia in terms of him from the perspective of like a fitness trainer. So that was really interesting. I think the actual question that gets tackled here is a little shallow, results wise, because a lot of it is bogged down by him bringing up a terminology or that he says has been talked about in another video in depth, and he doesn't want to repeat himself. And I get that from the perspective of someone who's, you know, running a pretty successful channel and a business out of this. So like, you want to milk an individual audience by like, hey, if you haven't seen this video yet, boom, 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 boom. So you get maybe like three views in one kind of deal. And also I can imagine from a content creator's perspective, I can definitely see the tedium of repeating yourself, and you know, you don't want to accidentally contradict yourself with the same information but in two different places, and that sort of thing. So I can definitely understand the perspective of it, but I don't appreciate it as someone who's, you know, just wants to watch the one video, right? It's like, do I have to really watch these other videos to get where you're talking about, and kind of losing the whole idea? And I feel like it could have done for a little bit of quick explanation, but like I don't feel like what he did was too adequate in my opinion. But I really do commend the effort, and I really like the niche that he's pulling from here. And it doesn't seem, I was expecting it to be the kind of video where he does it himself, but it's not actually one of those. It's more of like kind of one of those logic things of like, given the build that Asta has in the series, like a tree trunk neck or whatever like that, like would you naturally get that sort of build from the workout that's shown in the manga? And he's like, probably not to the extent, like it's fiction, so it's going to a logical extreme. Like you're doing a lot of these push-ups and handstands and stuff that would probably cause like hyperextensions, or you know, like he suggests the different injuries you could possibly incur from having done so many of the things that's said in the series. But he says like, yeah, technically this would work, where like you'd get that kind of build from doing a lot of strength training, and yeah, and again, you can kind of encapsulate the passion he has for it in this video, and it doesn't feel like going through the motions at all. So like it's a chill video, and cool creator. The editing is a little, I don't know, kind of sloppy in my opinion. It's just like, it's a lot of fairly cheap, just like pannings and like having watermarks and stuff like that, and the footage is kind of like from promotional footage or something. I know he wants to like avoid copyright. I'm sure he's had that problem in the past. You can tell that he's battle worn from it, I guess. But it's not a fairly good looking video in my opinion. It's just as a video creator, as someone who makes this stuff. But that wasn't too bad, because his personality really pushes and is kind of the main selling point, which I really enjoy. So it was a decent video. Good talking. Good to hear from him. And last, another creator I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but haven't really had the drive to yet. This is the new Aleczandxr video, Wolfgang Grimmer, The Beauty of the Human Spirit from Monster. Monster is one of my favorite shows, so I was willing to watch this video, which kind of extends to my general thing with Aleczandxr. I know he's definitely considered the GOAT with a lot of people, and a lot of people appreciate what he does. And what he does do is very clean and like straight-laced, and respectable in a lot of ways, because like his writing is very sharp, and doesn't meander, doesn't cloy. It's not annoying, and it's fairly mature and respectable, and you can tell he really gives a shit about the shows that he talks about, and it's very commendable in that regard. As a I give him all the credit in the world, as well as also being able to really, I mean, talking about Wolfgang Grimmer was great, and really getting to understand where he's coming from as a character. So it was great hearing from one of my favorite series, and I can imagine the joy that people get from his videos, from other material that they love, like however many times he's talked about Hunter x Hunter. Everyone loves that, because people love validating Hunter x Hunter in that way, and kind of proving why it's basically articulating their passion for it, I suppose, and why they like it so much, and Alex being able to articulate that into words very beautifully. I just don't usually fuck with the way his presentation of doing that. His script is great, and his delivery is solid. It's a lot like Super Eye Patch Wolf, where it's very slow. The sentences are very similar. Like, I don't know. It's one of those voices that I notice, and then I can't stop noticing, I suppose. And it's not a bad thing. It definitely isn't. But I'm just kind of voicing what I'm noticing with videos like this. And I think it extends to pretty much his entire video thing, because it's not like he's really trying to push the boundaries of what he can do visually with video or conceptually, because he's really just taking his writing style and his attention to detail and his strengths, which is, makes sense, and just applying it to all the characters he gives a fuck about and all the series he gives a fuck about, which is great and fair. In terms of evolution, though, it's like, I don't know how much he's really stepping his game up and making something that people wouldn't expect from him or surprising people exactly. But he's giving people what they want and making what he wants to make, and he's cool with that. He's cool with that. I respect the man a hell of a lot. There's just certain things with particularly the video and stuff itself. The clip selection is decent. It repeats itself a couple of times. And it's Monster, so it's not, there's not going to be anything too flashy about it. But I do appreciate that he includes a fair deal of voice. He doesn't necessarily include the clips. He takes the vocal from the performance and plays it over other clips and stuff. And I think that was a fairly interesting way of going about copyright and stuff, and making it more impactful, I suppose. Although when he's doing it with the Japanese audio, which I guess he doesn't have an appreciation for dubs, or Monster's dub, which is surprising because Monster has a very exceptional dub. And it's not like he's analyzing exactly what Grimmer says here. He's saying certain things to support his point, but his analysis is never like, what he says here means X. Like, he never does that with the clips, with the lines that he's showing. So I don't know necessarily what the problem was with using the dub. Maybe for hearing it, because it's audio. I don't know. I don't know why he didn't. Maybe he just doesn't respect dubs. And, to each their own, I suppose. But my problem then extends to the subtitling itself. He adds the subtitles himself. It's definitely not the subs that are from the show itself. So he's including them. And there's a couple of problems with these particular subtitles. And this is coming from somebody who, I'm not trying to nitpick. This has actually become my job, looking at subtitles and adjusting the timing of them, how much information is shown at one point for how long, using Agisub, the Agisub program, which is the software that most people use to translate, to make subtitles. And I literally am getting paid to fix closed captioning and stuff like that. So listen, I'm not trying to nitpick, but I'm just telling you. When you're doing subtitles, there's a couple of things here. When you have it's a 4:3 aspect ratio, so like a square box. But the video itself is 1920 by 1080, or the widescreen format. And the subtitles
stretch the entire way past the boundaries of the video. So the video is in 4:3, but the subtitles extend into like the black bars on the side, which doesn't look very good. Especially, you know, I mean, you also definitely can't do that with 4:3, because 4:3 it's just going to be the video itself. So you have to confine it to the particular box, and also you can't have the subtitle stretch from the far left of the screen to the far right of the screen. It has to kind of be centralized in the middle, so it makes it faster to read. And you need to be able to make it readable, to the where, like, not just simply the size. The size was okay; it was a little big, but it's fair with the size. But like, it was long and huge, like across the whole screen, so you have to read the whole thing left to right, and sometimes that didn't allow the audience member enough time to read the whole line. You know what I mean? So you needed to have broken it up a little differently, to where it's kind of matched with the vocal performance, as well as being able to read it, I guess, in the proper time without having to pause it, without having to rewind it. You know what I mean? And also, like, there's one moment where he has like 3 lines. There's very, very, very rare cases where you use 3 lines in a particular section. You really should try to limit it to 2, because that's just a lot of reading. And then when the moment people see that with 3 lines, they get intimidated. They have to pause the video, and then that then breaks the immersion, right? You don't want to break the immersion. So I would suggest a little more work on the subtitles itself, because it happened throughout the whole video. It wasn't one instance. You did this a couple of times, and I would imagine, since you make a lot of similar videos, that I don't necessarily click on, because I mean, I'm not that interested in the particular subject. I would imagine this is a long like happens in a lot of your content, and I think it's a great trick. I think it's something you should continue doing, but just to make it better, just pay more attention to the format of your subtitles, like the timing and how you show certain parts of it. I guess that would just be my recommendation. But you know, I enjoyed the video as a fan of Monster, and I respect your content a hell of a lot. So I hope you take this criticism and the things that I say to fair enough. You know what I mean? You're doing great work. Keep it up. All right. And now, what I thought were the best videos of the week, ones that really kept nodding my head, yes, 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 or was just generally really made me laugh, or was just kind of I had a fun time with. I like videos that I have fun with. First is not really an Anitube channel, the Grumps. They did a casual anime fans draw characters from memory with the Odd Ones Out, and this was funny because at the beginning they articulate that Odd Ones Out is a casual to the point where it's kind of like he just knows the most recent stuff, like, you know, Dr. Stone and all this other stuff. So very hilariously, and then Aaron just kind of knows the older stuff, like 80s, 90s, and kind of like the retro stuff, but doesn't know anything about what's airing right now. So they have no idea, and there's a lot of mistakes. There's no scoring. It's not really a contest. It's really just a bunch of them. It's just them failing miserably. And there's no disrespect to any of it, I don't think. But it was a lot of fun. As someone who's versed in, you know, the whole thing, kind of in the know, it's really funny. And the very, very first thing that happens is Odd Ones Out is tasked to draw Ichigo, but he doesn't know who Ichigo from Bleach is, so he draws Senku from Dr. Stone. And Aaron has no idea what Dr. Stone is, and he's like, that sounds like a parody. Like, he's like Odd Ones Out is describing what the show is about, and he's like, that sounds so dumb. or just whatever. And it's really funny. And then at one point they have to pivot to, like, because that's just not working, right? They're not guessing anything. So like the enjoyment isn't so much of the draw the characters from memory, but it's just their lack of knowledge and not knowing characters and stuff. Like, there was one point where, like, they mistake Kakashi for Sasuke or something like that, and it's like, God. But it's just really funny. As casuals and stuff. I thought it was funny. So I really enjoyed it. A good video. So Digibro put out a lot of content this week, like hours.
a lot in this month. He's back. Because I mean, I don't think he was that active in December. I remember it just kind of went in the dark a little bit, but then like, yeah, it just blew the door open on like, yeah, but we're doing stuff, and suddenly came out with like an hour-long podcast about the state of streaming and Crunchyroll. That I sort of enjoyed that podcast, but like a lot of it was just shitting on Crunchyroll for no reason, no real reason, and there was a couple things that were it's very off the cuff. It didn't feel very in the know about what's really happening with the streaming stuff and how they're kind of going down and stuff. It didn't have a lot of sources and stuff like that. It was kind of like tangential surface knowledge, I suppose. I don't know. It didn't feel as in depth as I think I was expecting. But what I really enjoyed, what I'm really here to talk about, was critics should be curators. I watched this a second time this morning, but I watched it when it came out because I had the Tontatsu DJ Akutaro thumbnail. Woo! But there's so much there's so much of me nodding my head and exactly what. Yeah. I was afraid I wasn't even watching this video again. There's just too many. I should have watched it a third time just to jot down some points he was making. But like the idea of a lot of YouTubers and reviewers, they're just there to show the audience their thoughts and like whether you should see it or not. But like there's just more value in seeing the thing itself. And he makes this incredibly good point where a lot of fans will hear of this really classic movie or OVA or something that they should watch, and then they're like, yeah, okay, and then they'll throw it on their plan to watch and never watch it. And they want to watch this incredibly good thing that they've heard incredible things about, and they're like, yeah, I want to watch that, but then they'll instead go back to watch the mediocre seasonal stuff that they're just on that track, and they'll just watch nothing but like the mediocre seasonal, like they'll try their luck at all these episode 1s and stuff and not watch the incredibly thing they would like. They're just kind of wired that way, and it's weird. And it was kind of a little call to action of like we should really try to change this culture or this consumption habit. It's just hard to do. That's a tall order. But it was kind of advocating for that and talking about how the idea that they should be curators. I think that the title, it doesn't necessarily get dug into like as the core idea necessarily, but he does kind of allude to the idea where reviewers and critics, they're just giving the taste, the kind of the hot stuff. They're giving their opinion on Star Wars, whatever. But none of them are going out of their way to dig back in the 2000s and 80s and 90s and find the stuff that is worth watching and advocating for it. Like there's one thing to find it and to consume it, and another to really push for it. And he talks about a Takahata group watch that like before this happened, very few people talked about Takahata, and now he's not as much of a household name as Hayao Miyazaki, unfortunately, but he really should be. And I think that kind of push, it's certainly a better place than it was before. And that sort of thing really could happen for other shows and for other creators. I mean, I feel like the real reason we got LOGH finally available to legally stream is just the buzz that it's gotten over the, as a cult following over the years, and the push that these elitists gave to it to really make it something special. And made it worth their while to put on High Dive and to get from Sentai. I mean, granted that was very unfortunate that the actual thing is a limited release. That's $700 fucking dollars, which is really disappointing. But that push is a success story, and I think that could definitely happen for other media. But we're all on the same page. I think a lot of us understand that, and like because Digi is very anti-establishment because he doesn't seem to trust Crunchyroll at all, has no qualms with pirating, and doesn't seem all that interested in joining the industry in an official capacity, which is okay. No fucking guilt there. And also like it's a very thankless job. I'm a couple months into it, and I agree it is very thankless. I wouldn't say miserable, not bad, but like
because it's cool, but like it is a lot of work. So, and then a lot of fine detail that not a lot of people will really pick up on, but some people will, right? But I bring this up to be like, he seems on the very same page as Justin Safakis, which he did have a rub-in with when he did his Dear Crunchyroll Stop thing, and it got so big that Justin had to do an answer man to it, interestingly enough. And then Digi had that interaction with him where he's like, this old guard should join us on YouTube and really start pushing this stuff. And Justin was like, I don't have time for that. And, coming from his perspective and kind of only a portion of what he has to work with. Like, yeah. But, I mean, this fan versus pro thing in this very same digest, it's starting to happen, which is really, really exciting. And it's also the kind of, I won't spoil it, kind of where I'm pushing. But it was just a bunch of yes. And it didn't come off as too abrasive. Like, I think a lot of his other content can be sometimes, in terms of like, his opinions can be very sharp, and like unapologetic, I suppose, with like very little sympathy for the people who are really trying, but failing. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I amen to this video. And I'm looking forward to practicing what you're preaching. It's like, well, it's not that easy. It's it's difficult. But I feel you. You're feeling. I can feel deeply. Really good shit. I really enjoyed that. And I think this is like a 3 for 3. I think she's, every time I've talked about one of her videos, it's a banger. Sydsnap, once again, entertaining the hell out of me with maggot baits from the creators before. Not even trying to bait it at all. She's really kind of banking on the thumbnail itself with the crying mascara, and then opens the video with Gigik opening this to the bathroom, and she's in the tub like crying and stuff. And I do think this is a lot of an act, of course. She's very animated with what she talks about, but you could really get a sense of pain from her experiencing this hentai visual novel that I believe that somebody kind of endorsed her to talk about, to review. So she's getting like, this is like a paid endorsement of sorts. But like, so I think she's really playing it up, and it's very visceral disgust for this particular show. And so this really brings up the interesting, my overall disdain for not giving a particular anime or manga or anything you're talking about respect. And the thing is, I think she does give this VN respect, because through her crying and like, cries for help and hating this, various, like, why must you subject me to this awful, morally objectionable content, or it sounds really gross. I would not be into it. But she does talk about how, like, she's like, the most frustrating thing is it's actually really well written. Like it actually has decent writing, and I was compelled to see what happened next. And he's like, how dare you? It was so funny. But it was like, yeah, you can actually give the show a fucking compliment. Wow, amazing. Even though it's like, it's caked in this, it just, the actual content, and you can have displeasure for it. And I don't know if that means I'm saying that, like, as long as you say something nice about it, maybe that's what I'm saying. But like, I am really I'm curious of what worked here, whereas what didn't work in Jeff's video, for example, or explanation points. You know what I think it was Sydsnap's not trying to be holier than thou. She's not saying she's not implying that she's smarter or better than this or anything. She's just coming from the perspective of someone who consumed it and was like, and it wasn't this show's so bad. look at this piece of shit. Don't watch this. I don't know. Smug is a word I think I would give Expo and Jeff. There's an air of, you think you're better than this fucking show. You think you know better. Sydsnap didn't have that at all. It was more, and maybe she does feel that, but she definitely didn't present that in this video. Even if this is like an act, right? And you know, she's coming from a perspective of someone who like made this her thing, you know, like she's talked about hentai a couple of times, and this is like, it is just funny as, you know, someone who doesn't consume this stuff, and like her feeling like genuinely remorseful about ever doing, it's like, I'm sorry mom. It's like this is like the logical extension of it, I guess. It was just so funny, and not necessarily at the, that's it, I think that's it, oh my god, it wasn't at the expense of this visual novel. It was at the expense of her. Like, she was the joke of like, of it was Schadenfreude of her suffering through this, and like her overreactions and her animation for it. That was entertaining. That was fun. And it didn't have anything to do with maggot, but you know, and it was like, it was painting it in a very objective light of like, this scene, oh, I couldn't believe that this scene happened. And not like the writing's so sloppy and bad. Or like what it's trying to do on a metatextual level, right? Or like, this show is trash trying to be trash, or like this is for young boys or something, like ridiculing the audience that this would be for. She doesn't ridicule the audience. She doesn't ridicule the VN. I think it's incredible. The enjoyment comes from her suffering, which like, there wasn't any palpable sense of suffering from Jeff's end. He can say that there was suffering in it, but he sure didn't sound like it, you know? And it was just him roasting it on behalf of the show itself and making fun of the show itself. I think that's the key. I think that's the difference. I mean, there's certainly other things you can do. Art is art, after all. But I think that was the key difference here that really made the difference. But yeah, I loved that sydsnap video, and she's still not the kind of creator that I'm like, I'm never missing an upload kind of deal. It does have to take a certain thumbnail and title to really hook me. She's a great content creator. Holy fucking shit. She's better than Gigak. And last, I'll call this the best video of the week, just because I really fuck with what's going on here, and the intent behind it, I suppose. Kono Oto Tomare just pretends to be bad, I promise. Kamimashita, again, with the very baity title of like, it's the, I don't know. The kind of the hook, the title that really hooks, but maybe like overextends it, I suppose. But good video. I really enjoyed this. This is talking about a seasonal anime that aired, I think, last year. I could have sworn this happened a while ago. Then like, nobody talked about this show. I think it was one of those shows that people watched the first episode and was like, meh, whatever, drop. Kind of like mediocre, whatever. And he confronts that mediocrity of like, yeah, it's doing the tropey thing, and people kind of expect this and that from it. But what it's doing is presenting you that mediocrity to then subvert that mediocrity of like, no, we're actually like the petty misunderstanding trope. Like they're actually going to flip it on its head and like, no, we're not going to just write this character off as a one-off bad guy. We're not going to trope this character. This character actually does XYZ. And really advocating for this show in a way that is commendable and wanting people to watch it. And again, this is a show that is not getting any representation, I don't think. I don't think anybody talked about this past the first episode. And people were like, yeah, whatever. And they probably just weren't in the mood for it. And I think it speaks a little bit to the seasonal attitude where the real standout shows are the ones that are the most inventive, or the ones that really strongly subvert expectations, or like are standout on some production level, you know what I mean? But Kono Oto Tomare is probably a representation of a lot of these shows where the production is decent and a little middling, but pretty okay. And the story isn't necessarily something wild or inventive or anything like that, but it does what it does, and there's a lot of genuine honesty to it, I guess, and there's something really cool with it. And Kami does admit of this this feeling of like, oh, I'll watch it. Just how bad can it get? Because the first episode's kind of whatever. And he was kind of watching it kind of a hate watch almost, I guess, where he was like, oh, let's see how bad it can get. But then he turned it around and really enjoy it. And that advocation and that idea is something I really fuck with. So I was really happy he made this. And so like, yeah, I'm mostly advocating this as one of the best videos of the week, just for the really practicing on it. I think Digibro had the most truth bombs and the most like yes to it. But not necessarily practicing in that. It was more of a metatextual commentary on that, and just one long take of him talking. You know what I mean? But in terms of like a crafted video and like really pushing a show in particular, no matter how much traction that's gonna get, like this would never be made by someone like Jeff, unless there was some significant buzz, right? Like the Oh Maidens in Your Savage season, right? Like that had a fair deal of talk to it. Like that, some people talked about that, so there was enough to really talk about that series. And I guess you could say that about Gamers, but no, Gamers was actually, I remember the season it came out, like everyone was talking about fucking Gamers, and then the season ended and nobody talked about it. Nobody gave a fuck. Like these shows just kind of disappear. And so like this is way past the season where it ends. It's not even that topical, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But like Kami just really put the show out. I was like, yeah, this was cool. I really enjoyed it. And it's like this idea of, but that's the shit, right? It wasn't just this show. Again, it was a representation of a lot of shows where they're starting out mediocre and then going through along with it. They start building into something and they start becoming more unique and have their own identity to it. So a show really isn't just its first episode, and I don't think it should be worth judging on the first episode alone. I mean, you say how good a show is, but in terms of how bad a show is or mediocre a show is, I don't think that's a fair enough assessment yet until you get more of an idea. I don't know. But I really enjoyed that. I really appreciated that, and I consider that my best of the week only for that reason, really. It really is a practice what you preach, and kind of what Digi was saying, where it was like we should be digging for these shows that people have no idea about. They don't know what they don't know. So yeah, freaking kudos to Kami. Kudos to everyone in this digest. That was a really decent week, and I hope you enjoyed that edition, even though it was audio only. I know I like watching my facial expressions too, but it be like that sometimes. Hopefully, my phone. I'll probably go to Verizon or something. I need to try that. All right, you guys have a good week. I swear I'm making the peace sign. Yo, peace.